the 25th Kolkata International Film Festival.
We welcome you all to the closing ceremony of the 25th edition of the Kolkata International Film Festival. One week has gone by in a flash, and yet it has generated myriad memories for all participants and stakeholders of cinema. The 25th year, the magic milestone of 25 has been reached, and it goes without saying that this indeed has been a very special edition of the festival. As we all know that the great thespian Amitabh Bachchan ji is one of the greatest supporters of this festival, one of our greatest inspirations. Due to health issues, unfortunately, he could not attend this year's opening ceremony. But such is the level of his commitment to this festival that he has sent us a recorded speech. We are privileged indeed, ladies and gentlemen, to commence the closing ceremony with the words of the one and only Amitabh Bachchan.
Namaskar, this is Amitabh Bachchan. On the 8th of November 2019 was the inauguration of KIFF in one of my most favorite cities, Kolkata, at the kind invitation of Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee. Unfortunately, due to certain circumstances, I was unable to be there. But since I had prepared a speech, I thought it only apt to read it out to you and hope that you will forgive me for my absence. Mananiya Mukhyamantri Mamta Banerjee, respected members, colleagues on the dais, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, pranam, namaskar. Especially a special namaskar to all the people of Kolkata for their continued love and affection and for their renowned welcome passion. Thank you. This passion is unmatched anywhere in the world. So I want to say again to you, onek dhanyavad. Thank you, Mamta Banerjee, for your persistence in inviting me to this prestigious Kolkata International Film Festival, yet again. And my wishes and greetings to you and the film fraternity on the Silver Jubilee celebration of KIFF. For Jaya and me, coming to this wonderful city has always been like the proverbial homecoming. Kolkata gave me my first ever job in the corporate world and gave Jaya her first film career, beginning when she worked in Manikda's memorable Mahanagar. A film that, in retrospect, has been applauded for its feminist theme, an aspect which, along with other sentiments, has truly reflected the secular spirit of India: inclusiveness, plurality, and equality. Every time I get invited by Mamta Banerjee, I am reminded of a Bengali nursery rhyme that I have adapted to suit my need today. So instead of one's maternal uncle's residence, I have replaced it with a sister's welcoming home. Tai tai tai, didir badi jai, didir badi bhari moja, kil chor nai. During my past visits to KIFF, we have spoken about the somewhat unknown creative contributions to cinema from Bengal. But I feel today there is a need to speak of two other most essential aspects: the role of cinema in the ever-growing digital space and the memorable contribution of several early women forerunners in the areas of production, direction, music composition, playback singing, and, believe it or not, even complicated stunts. As audience tastes rapidly move towards fresh digital content and online streaming, it would be most worthy to reflect on the core fact that films were primarily made for entertainment, drawing large audiences to the big screen. So, what does the future hold? With the allure of cinema, watched in movie halls, soon to be nostalgic memory triggered by the smell of butter in the popcorn, will big studios gobble each other up? Will smaller movies struggle to survive and big brand titles tank at the box office? Digital platforms like Netflix and Amazon are revolutionizing the way people watch films, and several other streaming services are now available in India. So what happens next? Can classics like Gone with the Wind or Mughal-e-Azam be watched on the small screen with the same excitement that had originally made them blockbusters? Can the magic of Satyajit Ray's trilogy or his classic Jalasagar be captured with the same amount of sensitivity on a small laptop or on a mobile phone? What of David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia? Can its magnificent panorama, outstandingly shot, be confined to limited digital space? And what of the women? Films, ladies and gentlemen, have a global history that has evolved over decades, and women have contributed significantly both in front of the screen and behind it. Yet, in our country, their entry in the initial days was heavily condemned. Raja Harishchand, India's first full-length feature film, which released in 1913, placed several challenges before its director, the legendary Dadasaheb Phalke. The biggest being the search for a female lead. Of course, no so-called respectable women or woman agreed to work in what was then considered to be a dubious profession, an infra dig. Eventually, of course, he had to make do with a male actor. So as a result, most incongruously, India's first heroine was not a woman, but a man in drag. However, today when we talk of Indian film heroines, instantly several iconic images of silver screen goddesses come to mind. But here's a fact that not many may be aware of. The tradition of women working as much in front of the camera as behind the scenes goes way back to the silent era. Fatima Begum was the first woman to break the male barrier and establish herself as a top-notch actor, writer, producer, and a director. In 1926, she started her own production company. Her production house was called Fatma Films, which was later renamed Victoria Fatma Films, and in a sense paving the way for other women to make their mark. Then there was Gohar, not to be confused with Gohar Jan of Calcutta, the high-flying courtesan with Armenian origins. This Gohar Qayyum Mamajiwala was a major star of the silent era, popularly known as Glorious Gohar. She started her career at the age of 16. And then with Jagdish Pasta, Chandulal Shah, Raja Sando, and cameraman Pandurang Nayak, started the Sri Sound Studios. Later in 1929, along with Chandulal Shah, she went on to establish Ranjit Studios, which was later known as Ranjit Movietone, and produced films in Hindi, Marathi, and Punjabi. Yours truly, ladies and gentlemen, has had the privilege of shooting some of my earlier 70s films in these studios. And here's another first. Saraswati Devi, born in a Parsi family, had to change her name from Khurshid Minocha Homiji to be able to work in the movie business. She was trained in Hindustani classical music under Pandit Vishnu Narayan Bhatkhande and took the industry by storm as a music composer in the 1930s. As a pioneering female music director, she went on to give huge hits for several films, including the very popular Achut Kanya. The song she composed for Achut Kanya, with lyrics by Jamuna Swarup Kashyap and picturized on Devika Rani and Dada Muni, Ashok Kumar, as you know, मैं बन की चिड़िया बन के बन बन बोलूं रे still evokes great nostalgia. She composed and recorded the first nationalist song of our country in the year 1936 at the height of the British Raj, Jai Janani Janamabhoomi, recorded for the film Janmabhoomi, directed by, and here it is, a German filmmaker called Franz Osten. It turned out to be a big triumph among our freedom fighters. And later, and this is very important, a refrain from the song was utilized by the BBC as the signature tune for its Indian news service. Along with Saraswati Devis, there was Jaddanbai, better known nowadays as the mother of our silver screen heroine Nargis ji. In 1936, she established Sangeet Film Academy to produce and direct films, was a singer and an actor. She recorded ghazals with the Columbia Gramophone Company and rendered thumris and light classical music on radio stations, spending sufficient amount of time in Calcutta, training under Bhaiya Sahab Scindia, or Bhaiya Sahab Scindia of the Gwalior Gharana. Jaddanbai's daughter, Nargis ji, was born here in a building on Indian Mirror Street off S.N. Banerjee Road and introduced to films in Talash-e-Haq as a child artist. Released in 1935, Jaddanbai played the lead in this film and furthermore composed its music also. So with sound firmly introduced to Indian cinema, playback singing saw an influx of musicians fluent in Urdu and Hindi enter the profession, cutting across rigid communal lines. These playback artists were our early pioneers who made it possible for Lata Mangeshkar ji and others to later carry forward the art. The technique of playback singing opened up the influence of Tawaif culture in Hindi cinema that became a brand new grammar. For instance, you know the song Mohe Pangat Pe Nandal Chhed Gayo Re is taken from the repertoire of UP's Tawaifs, originally sung as a Jag Mohana or a devotional bhajan chanted in praise of Lord Krishna's birth. It became an integral part of K. Asif's magnum opus, Mughal-e-Azam. While Amirbai and Zorabai, Ambalewala, Ambalewala, enjoyed huge popularity as early playback singers. Shamshad Begum was already a big name in the newly formed All India Radio, or AIR, that had emerged as a major performing site in the 1930s. Shamshad Begum became a star of playback singing through the better part of the 1940s, along with Noor Jahan, the undisputed diva of pre-partition Indian films. Noor Jahan, rendering her own playback in hit films. Born in Kasur in 1926 into a family of musicians, she too had a Calcutta connection and had moved here with her sisters in the early 30s, where her abundant talent was nurtured by a number of acknowledged masters of music. After the partition, she decided to move to Pakistan and was given the honored title of Malika-e-Tarannum. Her rendering of Faiz's Nazam, Mujhse Pehli Si Mohabbat Mere Mehboob Na Maan, it remains an evergreen classic even today. Again in the 1930s, this city of Calcutta, saw yet another indefatigable superstar. Begum Akhtar initially appeared as an actress on stage with Calcutta's Corinthian Theatre and later as a dazzling star in films like Ek Din Ka Badshah and Nala Damayanti, produced by Calcutta's East India Film Company. Hailed as a popular artist with the Megaphone Company, the stupendous success of a 78 RPM recording of the ghazal by Behzad Lakhnavi, Diwana Banana Hai To Diwana Bana De, made her an overnight melodic sensation. Like the wonderful Kananbai, also from Calcutta, hailed as a nightingale and praised by Jaidev, musician, who said, "Aisi awaz hazaron mein, salon mein na hui hai aur na hogi." Akhtari Bai too insisted on doing her own playback. Praised for her music by none other than Sarojini Naidu, who attended her concert organized in aid of the 1934 earthquake victims of Nepal and Bihar. Over the years, Akhtari Bai, of course, known as Akhtari Bai Faizabadi, transformed into the legendary Begum Akhtar and came to be known as Malika-e-Ghazal. Yet sadly, even as the industry filled up these incredibly talented women, there arose the inevitable hypocrisy around their sexuality and sensuality. Stigmatized by the government's various anti-trafficking laws, slowly their contributions began to get erased, with Victorian ideas of morality coming to the forefront, and from being an integral part of the industry, their characters, alas, soon became material for maudlin movie scripts. The wives who had once worked as sophisticated performers were now relegated to the ignominy of amateur singers, and most insultingly asked to use the back entrance at radio stations and recording studios. Even the legendary Rasulan Bai was not spared. The only artist to break these rules was Begum Akhtar. She refused to be cut down, and superstar that she was, imperiously swept past the centuries. Flashing her diamond nosepin, she would dramatically insist on entering through the main portal with her entourage of musicians, the undisputed Maharani of melodies. Besides early playback singers, Indian cinema also owes a deep debt of gratitude to the women of the Baghdadi Jewish community. Many of them not only acted in silent films, but also worked as stunt women and producers. As studios were set up, Anglo-Indian and Jewish dancers found a chance to appear on the silver screen. Ruby Myers, a Jewish telephone operator, transformed into Sulochana to become the first superstar of our silent films. She was recently commemorated on the Indian stamp. Along with Pramila, Esther, Victoria, Abraham in real life, Sulochana also established her own production company. Pramila, credited to being the country's first Miss India in 1947, entered the world of show business after deserting her family in Calcutta at the age of 17. Her first job was to keep cinema audiences quiet while some vigorous dancing during the 15-minute it took to change the reel in the single projector of a silent film. Later, she rose to be an important film producer under her Silver Productions banner. She made a name for herself by performing her own stunts, much like the renowned Fearless Nadia. Fearless Nadia, alias Mary Ann Evans, came to Bombay from Australia with her Scotsman father in 1913, and also became famous for her daredevil acts in the 1935 smash hit Hunter Wali, mastering the art of cartwheels, splits, horse riding, sword fencing, and of course dancing. An Armenian fortune teller, so the tale goes, had foretold that a successful career lay ahead if she picked a name starting with the letter N. So she chose Nadia because, as she later revealed in an interview, it sounded exotic. She was finally introduced to Hindi films as a slave girl in Desh Deepak by Jamshed Wadia, the founder of Wadia Movietone. She represented a profound shift in the way women were depicted in Indian cinema, usually as vamps, virgins, or victims. Frequently portrayed as a woman fighting injustice, Fearless Nadia was certainly the precursor by several decades to the angry young man. How can we forget the gorgeous Devika Rani, related to Rabindranath Tagore through her paternal grandmother, Sukumari Devi, which I'm not entirely sure of, but that's what they say, who was the Nobel laureate's sister, as they say. A popular star, she co-founded the iconic Bombay Talkies, along with her husband Himanshu Rai in the year 1934, to produce around 100 films. Initially assisting in costume design and art direction in Rai's experimental silent film A Throw of Dice, she soon began appearing in lead roles. After Himanshu Rai's death in 1940, Devi Karani single-handedly managed the studio, wading through several ownership battles to produce films like Basant and Kismat, and launched the careers of prominent Indian film industry luminaries like Dilip Kumar, who was introduced by her in 1944 in Jwar Bhata along with Ruma Guha Thakurta, who later became Kishore Kumar's first wife. Then in 1945, she finally retired from the movie business after a tumultuous stint, married the Russian painter Rorik, and moved to lead a reclusive life in his estate on the outskirts of Bangalore. Here's another story related to Rabindranath Tagore worth sharing. From the very beginning, ladies and gentlemen, cinema and its technical aspects had fascinated the poet. In 1930, during his visit to the Soviet Union, he had watched Einstein's Battleship Potemkin, visited film studios, interacted with directors and technicians, and in 1935, his biographer, Edward Thompson, had tried to negotiate with Hollywood's movie mogul, Alexander Korda, about the possibility of making films based on Tagore's works. Thompson suggested Chitrangada and Kshudita Pashan. Korda, however, turned down the offer as he was more interested in action-oriented films. Not many outside West Bengal know that Rabindranath Tagore did direct a film based on his play Natir Puja, an ancient story of a danseuse who sacrifices herself for her devotion to Lord Buddha. The metamorphosis of a court dancer from a woman of entertainment to a woman of spiritual dedication was extremely radical during those times. And B.N. Sarkar, founder, proprietor of New Theatres, invited Tagore to direct the movie. The performers exclusively consisted of female students from Santiniketan, another first and perhaps the only Indian film with an all-woman cast. Released at Chitra Talkies on the 14th of March 1932, sadly the prints of the film were later reportedly destroyed in a fire. Looking back, the post-independence years undoubtedly brought many gifted women to the fore. Literature Ismat Chugtai came to Bombay after marrying Shahid Latif. The foursome comprising Chugtai, Latif, Saadat Hasan Manto, and S. Mukherjee had together worked on the screenplay of the super successful Kismat. Thereafter, Chugtai formed a writer-director team with her husband and went on to work on the screenplays of various films. Besides Chugtai, Pratima Dasgupta, Zora Sehgal rose to great heights in the 40s. Dasgupta's debut directorial venture, Chamiya, in the year 1945 was a pathbreaker, banned, it is rumored, by the then Home Minister for its erotic content after he had seen it, it is rumored, 9 times. Zora Sehgal, of course, who had been trained under Uday Shankar, became a much sought-after choreographer. Certainly the period between the late 1920s and 40s firmly established the film industry as a viable career option for women. In 1936, when there was a lot of talk about economic emancipation, freedom fighter, feminist, and the leader, Leelavati Munshi, had famously remarked that films was one industry where women could find employment. Now in 2019, ladies and gentlemen, there are no less than 1,500 to 2,000 registered women represented by various unions working behind the scenes in numerous departments for making big-ticket movies. What started off as unusual career choice way back in 1926 has gradually become not just a coveted profession, but also an exciting creative outlet. Today, more than 100 years later, when women and men are toiling in the film industry shoulder to shoulder, we also have several options for viewing content in the comfort of our homes. Yet the thrill of watching movies on the big screen remains unmatched. We need to find ways to protect these traditions. I like the idea of pictures first showing in cinema halls and then perhaps going to streaming and other devices. I'm a loyalist to that degree. Yet, all said and done, watching a film on the big screen must remain enticing and realistically priced. Content must be the undisputed king to draw people out of their sofas on lazy Sunday afternoons. Young viewers today have been exposed to international cinema, television and the arts. They want high-quality entertainment, avenues to satisfy their evolved sensibilities. So we must pledge to give it to them with the same enthusiasm as our early pioneers. As Francis Ford Coppola had once said, "I think cinema, movies and magic have always been closely associated. The very earliest people who made films were magicians." It is now our duty, ladies and gentlemen, not to let these magicians down. Thank you. Namaskar.